This expectation that the Shabbat should take precedence over it means that on a national level, the destruction is not allowed to overtake or to supersede our pleasure, our enjoyment, our connection to Simcha in Avodat Hashem. As if to say, Beit HaMikdash was destroyed as a result of a lack of this. And the prophets being ignored probably had a lot to do with the fact that people were on such a low level, forget that they weren't prophets themselves, they couldn't even appreciate the prophets. So you had 4, 5, 6 giants who could prophesy and could see the whole thing unfolding in advance. What does it help if the nation is on such a low level? They understand nothing. Yeah. They know nothing. They see nothing. You can talk to the walls. They're not going to listen to you. Yirmiyah is told at the beginning of his prophet, it doesn't even matter if they don't listen to you. It's irrelevant to your mission, whether or not your message gets across. Your job is to get up and speak. Don't say I didn't warn you. Whether or not the people listen to you, I'm telling you now they're not going to listen to you. What does it matter? Your goal is to get up and speak. You have to say. You have to protest. Chazal also told us something very interesting. Nevuah itself depends just as much on the generation as it does on the prophet. Yet another explanation to why we don't have prophecy in this generation. Why is this? Famous expression by Baruch ben Neriah, who attempted to achieve prophecy his entire life and never succeeded. And the expression the Gemara quotes, Yagati barchati u'mnuchal matzati, like I sighed in my fatigue, in my tire. I sighed like I gave up. I worked so hard I got exhausted, is what he's trying to say. And I never found rest. What was the rest he was looking for? The Gemara says could be he was working hard in order to sit down. Sit down now if you want. No, what he was working hard for his entire life was nevuah. He was looking for prophecy. And it's not that he wasn't righteous, not that he wasn't meritorious or deserving of it. His generation was unworthy. He tried his entire life to focus on prophecy and achieve at least one message, something. I want to taste what it was that the Nevi'im saw. And the Gemara says he was refused. Why was he refused? Not because he wasn't worthy, because the generation itself wasn't worthy. Because prophecy doesn't happen in a vacuum. Prophecy is a function of the level of the nation. If the nation's on a high enough level, and there's an exceptional individual with exceptional capabilities, in a leadership capacity of the nation, then the prophetic resolution is high.
Yeah.
If the nation's on a low level, very difficult to achieve prophecy. And unfortunately, many of the prophecies that we received towards the end of the period where Beit HaMikdash was still in existence were negative prophecies about the end of prophecy, about the end of the Beit HaMikdash, about the exile, etc. So, although they could see the messages, they weren't especially happy ones.
Yeah. The Christians, they claim that they have nevuot.
I've never seen anywhere a credible claim by a Christian that the Christians produced a prophet of their own.
Yeah.
Jesus was Jewish, and if they believed he was a prophet, then they believed that he was another Jewish prophet.
It's very common among evangelical Christians. They say, "Oh, I have the spirit of prophecy and this and that." You see these nutcases on the internet.
I haven't heard any.
Yeah, but that's what they claim. They claim that they have the ability of nevuot. They could prophesy.
It's an impressive and pretentious claim. I'd be happy. What do they predict, if that's the case?
They always predict.
What's the weather going to be? What's the stock market going to do?
It's usually about personal life or always the country, this and that.
People like this come and go. So, interestingly enough, the nation itself plays a very critical role in prophecy in the sense that the nation needs to be on a certain level for prophecy to happen. So it's not just the prophet himself who has to have simcha, Avodat Hashem. The nation itself needs to be able to take pleasure and enjoy the mitzvot. The prophet, we expect so much the more so. He should experience it in technicolor, on a much higher level and much more detail, deeper understanding of the mitzvot and where they come from. And the expectation is that between the two, his exceptional abilities and the nation's spiritual level, prophecy becomes possible once again.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an interesting example of the importance of even semi-quasi sort of prophecy that would trump the Shabbat, only because the message is so urgent that it becomes impossible to enjoy the Shabbat the way you're supposed to. And at the same time, Chazal, knowing full well Tisha B'Av will come out on Shabbat because they already made these calendars 2,000 years in advance, they knew that the pleasure that we derive on the Shabbat, the connection that we have to the Shabbat, needs to be emphasized over the negativity, the suffering, and the calamity and the disaster of the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. It's very interesting. It's not that we no longer believe in prophecy, we don't believe that it's possible, and it's not that the destruction isn't important to us to the point that we push it off when it happens to fall out on Shabbat. It's that the two perspectives are necessary in order for prophecy to be renewed. We need to be able to eat, and the expression, by the way, in the Gemara, is that Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbat. You can eat Kishlomo B'Shat Malchuto. You can
Really?
eat like Shlomo HaMelech at the time of his kingdom. We do nothing, and the Ashkenazim are a little bit different on this.
Oh, well, we already know that.
The Rema writes that the custom has already been not to wear your fanciest Shabbat clothes and not to do certain things. The Sephardim, none of it. Absolutely nothing. Not until the minute Shabbat ends. Are we going to change our shoes? Are we going to change our tone? Are we going to eat any differently? No reason we can't eat meat the entire Shabbat. Nobody can tell me what to do on Shabbat because I'm here to enjoy it. And this is my goal. Had a bad dream, it all goes whistling down the
You know
well.
that they have a special Echad tune that they sing only on Tisha B'Av.
Really?
But for the record, Rabbi Schwartz refused to put it because he's like, no, it's Shabbat. We should not have any morning sign on
The
the.
Shulchan Aruch is pretty adamant about this.
So it's like it's a custom, but apparently
We don't
smart
do
rabbis don't like it.
Not personally and not nationally. We don't commemorate in any way that it's Tisha B'Av. So interestingly enough, the Shabbat itself. Not only do I have to keep the Shabbat, you would say maybe I'm tempted to do a diet Shabbat, a little bit light. We'll have fish. We don't have to have meat. Not at all. Not only do we commemorate the Shabbat the way that we normally do, we do it in style. I would say, I don't know if I would celebrate extra beyond what I normally do on Shabbat, but the fact that Shabbat is there to be enjoyed and for us to take pleasure is explicit in the Shulchan Aruch. He tells you exactly what Chazal meant. When they said Tisha B'Av is not going to be commemorated on Shabbat, he meant Shabbat will be commemorated as normally scheduled, along with all the bells and whistles, along with all of the side dishes, accompaniments, salads, drinking, eating, etc.
Yeah.
There will be a time to fast. The time of fast will be after
So
Shabbat.
doesn't have sicket is normal. It's like a
It's
standard
Seudah
Seudah
Shlishit. You can eat whatever you want, as long as you finish eating before the Shkiyah. Even then, it's a funny discussion, but look, at the end of the day, already from the time of the Shkiyah, we're going to back off of the Shabbat a little bit. Even though technically, Tiltzak Chavim, we commemorate the Shabbat, but not doing Melacha, at the same time, it's the beginning of Tisha B'Av, so we end Shabbat into Tisha B'Av in a kind of funny way. We light candles, we read Echad, and instead of doing a full Havdalah with wine, we don't do it that way, basically. That's not the custom. But the idea is a very interesting one. Not only do we commemorate the Shabbat, we commemorate it as we would commemorate any other Shabbat with no limitations, no restrictions, no inward, no outward adjustments to our pleasure, our enjoyment of the Shabbat.
Yeah.
And all of this, why? Because there must be something in the pleasure, in the simcha of Shabbat that contributes to the rebuilding of Beit HaMikdash. And my answer to you is it's the same way we began, how prophecy depends both on our simcha, our high-level spirituality in the mitzvot, and the sensitivity to the message being broadcast.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to receive prophecy, let alone a prophecy that's accurate, or even a dream that's somewhat accurate. So much the more so to receive something that's true on a national level, that all we have left is the suspicion that if you had a bad dream on Shabbat, it concerns you and no one else. You're the one who should be fasting. That's about as high level as you can reach in terms of our suspicion of the messages being sent to you for whatever reason. When it comes to the nation and prophecy on a national level, it involves the entire nation being on a level of simcha. This, the renewal of prophecy, is ultimately the goal. We're going to fast, we're going to, hopefully Mashiach comes before then, we'll see. If the imbeciles in charge of the world, or who believe they're in charge of the world, continue on this path, we might see Mashiach sooner rather than later. But nonetheless, there's a time and a place for the suffering, there's a time and a place for the fasting, for the mourning. As Chazal said, everyone who participates in the mourning and the sorrow and the suffering of the destruction of Zion will ultimately merit to see the rebuilding and the redemption, which basically is a function of connection. If you're connected to Zion so much that you feel the negativity about its destruction, you should also be able to express the positivity of its rebuilding as well. So we have a funny contrast between the pleasure and the simcha of the Shabbat and the mourning and the sorrow that follows, but both of them are two sides of the same coin. I'm connected. I appreciate what we've lost, and I'll express that on Sunday. When it comes to Shabbat, I need to find my simcha. I need to anchor myself in this connection to Hashem, and to be able to feel and taste and smell and enjoy what's ultimately a day that's supposed to be indicative of what Olam Haba is supposed to be, such that both doors are open, both the emotional sensitivity to the destruction, at the same time, the excitement and the connection to the rebuilding. Should have the merit of receiving the face of Mashiach before it actually happens, but in the event that not, the fast should be meaningful and should hopefully get done what it needs to get done.